Hi there, it's Archie. I'm back for another special edition of the ADHD Care Podcast. I've got a special guest joining us all the way from the States. I've got Shell Mendelson, who is an ADHD career coach, speaker, mentor, teacher, and masterclass facilitator. So we are discussing all things ADHD and career. So just think about, choosing your right career in your future, which path you might want to go down, given that you've got your ADHD, and sometimes that could be quite a tricky choice to make. So I want us to have a discussion around that. So I'm just going to bring Shell in for a conversation around that topic. Hello. 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 I can see that Shell is just trying to connect via audio. So once again, we are discussing ADHD and career on this special edition of our podcast today. And we are pleased to be joined by Shell Mendelson, who is just trying to join in online via Zoom. I think she's just gone back into the waiting area. So I'm just going to bring her on one more time. Let's see if technology is going to let us. Let's have a look. Hello. Hello. I can't hear you for some reason. Hello. I can see you. I can't hear you. Hang on.
Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. Hello.
Hi,
Hey.
how are you?
Nice to meet you finally. Sorry. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm just moving my computer so I can, because I was using another one thinking there was something wrong with this one
Right.
I don't know.
Do you know what? I'm not sure whether we had our time mixed up at all, because obviously we are out here in the UK and it's 5 p.m. I'm not sure what time it is over there.
It's 11 a.m. here.
Oh, right. Okay. Excellent. Because I thought initially I was meant to meet you an hour before, but anyway, great. Not that's ADHD for you, isn't it?
It is. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So, so nice to bring you onto our podcast. I was just doing a long introduction just before I brought you in there, just to talk about yourself and just your experience, and also what we are discussing on this podcast today, which is all about career and ADHD.
Okay. Are we on?
Obviously, yes, we are on.
Oh, okay. Got it.
We are.
Hello, everyone.
This is a fascinating subject that I'm really excited for us to be discussing today, because I work with adults all the time, and this is something that they always ask me, like, I've got ADHD, what pathway do you think I should take, what job and what career should I go down? So so for you, having worked in this field of ADHD and coaching for more than 30 years, I'm sure you come across this all the time.
Yes. That's my work. That's what I do. It's all I do, by the way.
So you found your right career then, and you stuck with it.
I stuck with it for 35 years.
Right.
Many twists and turns. Yeah.
I'm sure. So I'll come back to your own journey as well, because obviously I know you are diagnosed with ADHD, but certainly just to ask you first, what is it that got you into this field of ADHD, specifically doing coaching?
Well, I've been doing career counseling and coaching, like I said, for 35 years. I was diagnosed, but for a good part of that, I was undiagnosed.
Right.
And when I finally started figuring out there's something off here, I've got to, and I won't tell you the whole long story that got me to that point. But when I finally said, okay, now I've got to find out if this is real, if there's something going on, I finally got the diagnosis. I was very late in life. And I was still working with clients, and I realized now's the time that I need to be working with ADHD people like me. it just makes sense, because I saw the issues that I had, even when I was in the right career, but choosing the right career, that's what I've always worked with people, is helping them find the right path for themselves. And basically without that, it's hard enough with ADHD, let alone not knowing the track that you want to be on.
Yeah,
So I
absolutely.
realized, yeah, so I realized that that was my mission at that point, was to just stay focused on my community of ADHD adults. Yeah.
So did you go down other different career paths at all?
I took some different paths during the time that I was doing the coaching. And if you read anything about me, you know that I started a franchise system called Kids Art, which became an international franchise. And if you have ADHD, you know that when you find something that you're committed to, most people are all in 100%. And that was me. And I got very focused on that. My son was very young at the time, and I loved art. And I just said, I got to find a way to bring art to more children. And the classes at the time were being taken out of the schools, because another thing about us is that many of us are very mission driven. So for me, I found that if my son is experiencing the lack of art in his school, which I thought was a very important subject, as important as the other academic subjects, and it was being downgraded, that must be true across the country. So, and also being business minded, I wanted to find a way for people to actually make a business with art somehow, with
Mm.
bringing art into it. And so the name, I just woke up one morning with the name Kids Art in my head, and the business model of just doing something like a franchise system where it could be duplicated everywhere. And it took years and years and years of figuring all of it out, but I did. I still work with clients a little bit during that time. But when I took that off-road, shall we say, and I now call it a mission, not my life purpose, because it was meant to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. My actual purpose is doing what I'm doing now. When you get taken off that path, very often, if you continue beyond the end point, it can become disastrous. And that's kind of what happened to me, as it became a real albatross. Even though I was the founder of the company, I started not liking the day-to-day, which became kind of a corporate entity. And for those people with ADHD that work in corporate America and are having issues or challenges for whatever reason, some people do fine, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people have some difficulty navigating all that. Um, for me, I realized that my company had to become corporate, which is the one thing I never wanted, because I never enjoyed working in corporations
Yeah,
myself. And
yeah,
here I was doing this, putting out fires every day and not enjoying my work anymore. I was not having fun. It was just like, okay, I'm ready. I need to get out of here. And unfortunately,
yeah,
I was undiagnosed at the time, so I was driving everybody crazy. I was just really like, get me out of here. So my head wasn't in it as much as I wanted it to be, and I wasn't being as thoughtful as I could be. Yes, I take a lot of responsibility, but things did not go that well, and it really ended up pretty disastrous overall. But the company is still going. I'm very proud of what we created, very proud. We help thousands and thousands of children, not just in this country, but globally,
mm,
to create art and build confidence in themselves.
right.
And when I started, after that, I'll call it a very long-term incident of several years, I returned to doing what I love, which is now the work I do now. And I took on a couple of clients again, and it was like this weight had been lifted, and I was home again, and I felt so good. And I said, I'm never leaving. That's it. Never leaving.
Yeah,
So that
yeah.
was what brought me to my diagnosis. And that was kind of the twists and turns that happened
Mm,
along the way.
right. Excellent. Um,
Yeah.
that sort of leads me to my next question, really, in terms of how does ADHD affect one's ability to make a decision in terms of what career pathway they decide to go down?
Well, I mean, anyone who's looked at my website knows the first thing that sticks out is you have many ideas. You have people with ADHD tend to be not just dreamers, but we are really problem solvers, and we like many things. We often have a lot of ideas about things that we want to do. We've tried a number of things. We've gotten distracted and taken shiny object classes. That's what I call them. Wasted a lot of money maybe on taking something and maybe not even completing it. Everybody who's listening to this is going to totally understand what I'm saying, because it is true, right? You have all these ideas, but you don't know which one is the best one, and you don't know how to make it last and keep it sustainable, right? What do I do? So this
Yeah,
question, by the way, is not just a question for people with ADHD, it's people without, it's neurotypical people as well. But with
yeah,
ADHD, we tend to have more ideas and more that more things that we need to consider, challenges that we need to take into consideration before we make the next leap that's going to create a sustainable situation
mm,
for us. I'll call it a career path. So you need to have a path. It needs to be sustainable. There needs to be a way that you can sort of identify and sift and sort what the right things are, what the things that aren't right for you are. And that's a process. And nobody knows how to do that process unless they've been through it. Like, you need a roadmap and you need a way to sort of discover what your real true preferences are. Not just ones you think society wants you to have, but your actual real preferences, the things that you're attracted to, the aspects of work that make you happy, that you are comfortable with, that get you excited, get you moving, get you energized, right?
mm,
And that's a process. So that is a process that I do. I call myself the gap filler. It's like it fills the gap in terms of the what part. What is it that I want to do? What is it? I have no clue. Well, you've got to go through this process of, identifying, number one, the skills you want to use. I mean, I could go on about that, but that is a process. It's broken
yeah,
down into a variety of areas, and it's beyond just checklists. It really does push you to be authentic with yourself, be true to yourself, not think about the money part first, which is what most people do. It's like, how am I going to make
yeah.
money doing this? Yeah, that's
That's
always
the
a question.
that is the
Yeah,
gratification part of it, isn't it? And that dopamine seeking sort of behavior that is the
yeah,
end goal. Okay, where's this
yeah,
going to take me? You want to take the
yeah,
short route? Yeah, I get
yeah.
you. At what stage would you kind of start to create this roadmap? I'm assuming as soon as you leave school, maybe, or do you have? I suppose someone can look at it and say you have to go through different kind of jobs and try and work out what you're quite good at, what you like, and to discover yourself, or would you actually have to have that clarity right from the beginning before you actually go into employment?
Ideally from the beginning, but that's not reality for most people, because this process is not something that is required in schools. It's not even given, and if it is given, it's not done in the best way possible, where you really do allow somebody to really go inward and to really look at who they are. Why are you a podcaster? Why are you interviewing me now? You probably have some good feelings around it. It probably interests you. You're engaged. You get to talk to people. I'm guessing here, but
Yeah.
there's something about what you're doing that keeps you focused and interested and wanting to do more of it, right? And I'm sure this isn't all you do. It may be one aspect of what you do,
It
right?
took me a
So,
while to actually get to doing podcast hosting, to be fair. So yeah, I know what you
yeah,
mean.
exactly. Exactly. So that's part of the process. It's really identifying those skills you enjoy using, the people you want to be working with, and also a big piece of it are the working conditions. And those are the things that a lot of people struggle with when they work for somebody else. Number one, you're kind of left, it's left in their hands unless you can have a conversation that actually is a win-win to get what you need. And we talk about that as well. But when you're working for somebody else, you're always going to be subject to their how their company is run, to somebody else's ideas of, who should be supervising you, who should be your work or teammate, or who should be right, or where, even what work you're doing. And you, without this process, you don't have any way to sift and sort all that. So when you ask, when should it start? Yes, ideally before you get out of high school. If not that, before, if you go to college, before you choose a major. If you're going into a trade school of some kind, certainly right after high school, or even before you get out of high school. But that's not realistic. Most of the people I get are, I would say, millennials for the most part. Are the clients that I have, but now I'm getting them earlier and earlier, after they've been through a few hits and misses in their career, which is fine. You know what? That's okay too. The sooner the better, obviously. The later,
Yeah.
and I've had people of all ages. I work with literally all ages. This process is for everyone. It's never too late. It's never too late. So
What I say to that, would you say someone who's like 18 or 19, do they actually really know what they want? Because certainly what I wanted when I was that age is different to what I ended up becoming. So yeah.
no, yeah, I mean, absolutely 100%. They shift and change, and this process allows you to do it. When you have the roadmap, you can start moving things around a little bit, but you have a foundation that you're working with. So
Right.
if you have this tendency, you see that you, what I call the cream rising to the top, things start to be repeated over and over again. Ideas are repeated. You're like a clue, you're like a detective, which a lot of people with ADHD love that the process for that reason, because they like to problem solve, but they're problem solving on themselves. And they're realizing that, yeah, maybe I need to start here, maybe get a little bit of schooling in this, just to get a foundation in this field that I'm really fascinated with, right? Why am I fascinated with this field? Why does this field keep coming up? Or why does this industry, why am I attracted to this industry? There are certain things that will come out earlier in life, but they will be found, the foundational part will continue if you're doing it right, if you're being honest with yourself. We tend to have a theme for ourselves. It's hard to, if you know what I mean, we all kind of have this little theme going for
Yeah.
ourselves, which we
Yeah.
call life purpose. And once you sort of discover what your purpose is, and that happens through this process as well, you see that, from where you were headed even as a child kind of sticks with you in some ways. And it's not literal, folks. It is not literal. It's just that you start to see this theme and this energy around certain subjects, certain topics, certain things, for like helping people, for one thing, could be or teaching. I was like 7 years old. Thought I wanted to be a teacher.
Mm.
I would force my little brother to play school with me, and he was 4 years old. He didn't have a choice. He had to sit there as a student while I doled out the homework. Right.
Yeah.
My poor brother. He doesn't remember, but yeah, and that theme of wanting to impart information and wanting to teach, train, coach, all of that is still what I do today. And I won't tell you how many years later, but many
Yeah.
years later. It doesn't change. There's some element of it that's always going to be true, and it's discovering what that is.
And also, obviously, with most people with ADHD, they struggle to hold down a job. What you find is they will start going to a new employment, work for a few months, a few years, and then give up, move on to something else. That's the pattern that you find. Would you say in that situation they haven't really discovered their path or really kind of
Yes.
done
Clearly.
what you're trying to describe there? Yeah.
Well, a lot of people say that they've had their jobs fall into their laps. You've heard that term, right?
Yeah,
It
yeah.
just fell into my lap. So, and somebody gave me, told me to call this person and have an interview, and I got this job, and it paid a certain amount, and it ticked a few boxes. And, but there was so little real thought that goes into it, the kind of thought that you really need to be doing before you make these decisions, because sometimes they can be a really good way just to get some work experience, but in other ways it can be uh, detrimental. It can cause harm if you are treated badly in that situation, if you feel like you're not being heard, people don't understand you, all the things that people who are in those situations, they're in jobs they don't like, those things will start to show up, because people with ADHD cannot maintain a job they don't like for years. Some people can go on longer than others, but at some point it's going to break down. And the way it breaks down and the way it shows up is in the mistakes you make. You're not making deadlines, showing less interest, less enthusiasm, which is noticed by your employers. They have in this country something that's called the Performance Improvement Program. Do they have that over there, PIP programs?
We have, yeah, we call it something else. Can't remember exactly the name, but yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, so people with ADHD very often get put in probably if I were to take the percentage of people that get put in those programs, there would be a high percentage of people with ADHD.
Mm.
And when I see them, when they come into the class that I do with, it's like they're so, they seem very beaten down, and they seem very frustrated, and there's a lot of negativity. Before they can the clouds start parting a little bit. But when you're in that situation, it can really do a lot. It's almost trauma. It can be traumatic, one of those traumatic experiences. So I'd love to have people avoid that any way they can by getting this information and doing this process before they make those kinds of decisions. Um, and again, people will get PhDs in things and go into certain kinds of work because they think they're going to do really well, and maybe they like
Yeah.
some aspect of, well, I'm going to get to do research because I like research. I don't know what it is, why people get, but I've had people with double PhDs in the that I've worked with. Your education makes no difference. It's the right education. It's the right job, the right
Yeah.
fit for you. That's what's important.
I agree. You touched on my next point. I was going to mention there about choosing the right course that you go on to do in university and things that, yeah. I've come across students that have done PhDs and not actually utilize that qualification, and they'll end up doing another job which is completely not even
Completely.
linked with what they've done at university. So, which goes back to
Yeah.
the point that you spend 4 or 5 years doing a course that you're not going to
Yeah.
utilize and use. Um, so I think once you find that employment job that you really like, then the next question is about the support that you would need in that environment that you're in. So when we're
Yep.
looking at from an employer's point of view, and you as the employee, what would you be advising?
I would advise before you even take the job to have like I here's what I say. When you're in an interview, this is where you can sort of nail a few things down. It's not going to be perfect. Employers can do a few things. They can, if they really want somebody, they can uh, sort of make it look appealing enough and stroke their ego enough for them to take the job. And then bait and switch, what I call bait and switch them, which means, oh, we're going to start you out here first. You know what I mean? For a few months and see how you do here. And here could be the worst thing possible, right? So having the conversation before you even get the job in a way that is a win-win for both of you. So you go in with the attitude of not being what I call job beggar, and being more of a job like promoting or developing a job for yourself. So you get very selfish here, and you ask specific questions that have to do with the kind of work environment you're going to be in, the kind of people you're going to be working with. the kinds of accommodations, or you don't want to use the term accommodation or have to tell them you have ADHD, because then you don't know how they're going to respond to that. And employers notoriously are not good with that information. Some are, but many are not. Many make a lot of assumptions, and who knows what they think of that. So you want to get more specific about and tell them when I am able to get up and move around when I need to, when I am able to use like headphones, or if I'm working on a project so I'm not disturbed, noise cancellation, or even listening to music, whatever works, when I have a space that I can work in where I'm not being disturbed, where I have some privacy if that's important. So whatever is important to you, letting them know in advance, when I have these things, you will get the best out of me. You will get like the best employee ever. So it becomes a win-win. But if you don't ask them in advance and see how they respond, and you can learn a lot by just how they respond to you. If they kind of roll their eyes, that's not a good thing. Or if they take a long pause and they go, well, that's not a good thing either, because you kind of think they're trying to figure it all out instead of like just being open to the idea of how you can accommodate somebody. So I really support people in just getting up and freaking saying, thank you very much. This doesn't seem like a good fit for me. Don't put yourself in that position, because there's no good will come out of it. Even if the pay is fantastic, is it worth it? If you end up struggling in the situation, you end up one more time in the wrong job. And I always tell people, look, if you're in the wrong job, it's not you, it's the job that you're in. And there's nothing wrong with the job. It's just that the two of you don't match. So it's not about anything wrong with you. It's not about deficiencies that you have. It's about, we're all brilliant at so many things, but we're more brilliant at the things that we're attracted to and we enjoy doing, are we not?
Yeah.
I'm having this conversation
Absolutely.
with you. You can hear the
Absolutely.
energy, right? I love having these conversations.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
me.
What I was just going to say is sometimes the employee doesn't know exactly what accommodations they would need in that work environment. Is that something that you as a coach, you would sit through and guide them through in terms of, okay, you do this job and, these are some of the things that might benefit you in that particular environment you work in?
Down to the paperclip.
Right.
I mean, in great detail.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest pieces, because our working conditions are absolutely one of the most important things that will matter to us in the work we do. Even if you're working at home, you need to set up your situation so that you're at your maximum at all times. And you have more control at home, right? So a lot of people do work from their homes, but you also need to understand your needs and just get what you need to set yourself up for success from your home, right? So it can work any way, either in the office or in a work environment. It's not always office, but so if people are working like in a retail environment, they really have to be okay with a lot of what goes on there and know that they're not going to have as much say in how that structure goes, right? So knowing what it is that you want, number one, and need, number two. And actually, they're both number one.
Yeah.
Want and need is going to paint a better picture of how you'll succeed in that, or feel in general, because it's a feelings thing, right? How you feel on a day-to-day basis. Do you feel energized? Are you looking forward to seeing people? Are you looking forward to getting working on the projects you're working on? Those are feelings that really need to be there, and to be something that you can expand on. And when you're like hitting a roadblock of some kind, what the next steps are for you, that becomes clear when you know what you want, when you have this roadmap laid out for yourself.
We
Yeah.
talked about that immediate gratification earlier, particularly with people that have ADHD, in terms of the one that end goal right away. I want to talk about hyper focusing. That's again
Mm-hmm.
another trait of ADHD, and how that can
Mm-hmm.
impact someone's ability to make a decision in terms of what career they want to take.
Hyper focusing. Well, I think there's good hyper focusing, and there's not so good hyper focusing when you're sort of out of balance. That's when it's not great, is when you're not paying attention to your family. you're missing appointments, your time blindness gets to you, and you miss, things start to kind of unravel because of that. But there's also the good part, that when you're really interested and engaged in something, you could produce something magnificent with hyper focus. So the more you can do that in your work, I say the better. The more opportunities you have to do that within, if you have good deadlines, like what those deadlines are going to be, and you have like a way to make sure that you're not going over, stop yourself, take breaks, things like that. Hyper focus is, you can hyper focus on any number of things. In work, it can be a good thing or it could be a bad thing. That's all I'm saying. Yeah.
No, I agree. I think you can hyper focus on task, a certain activity, which as you know, that can drift and take you to a different path. The other point I was just going to make, because some people ask me, like, are there particular jobs that are suited for people with ADHD, which is very generic sort of question, really. Like, I feel any job can suit anyone with ADHD, as long as it caters to, then there's a balance, isn't it? It's like, okay, how can you make it work for you just because you've got ADHD? It's not like there are.
You're right.
And usually, most people tend to go down the kind of, some people go down the IT route, some people go down the physical kind of type jobs that doesn't involve sitting down for a long time in an office environment, that sort of thing. They're the ones that I tend to hear people going down. I don't know, from your experience, what are some of the jobs that you tend to see most of your clients end up kind of going down the path?
I refuse to answer that question. for good, I know I'm giving you a hard time, but the reason I do is because the first thing you said was correct, and that is that there is no such thing if you're in the right situation for you. If it's the right fit for you, it can be literally anything. I don't even want to say what the things are, because I don't want people to say, oh, I should look into this, if it's not the best fit for them. Just because people go into it, it doesn't make sense. So when I see things like the top 25 careers for people with ADHD, it's bunk. It really is, because those might be fine for people who've done this work before, and these are the ones that they've identified for themselves as being the best fit. But as people are working through the process, which is the parachute process, that if you know anything about me, I was trained by Richard Bowles, who wrote What Color's Your Parachute. I've tweaked the process for the past 15 years for people with ADHD. So it's the same process, but it's different, because I've added a lot to it, and customized it for our community. But now remind me of what I was talking about. I went off track.
No, that's absolutely fine. No, you weren't going to answer my question anyway, so I
wasn't going to answer it.
My
ADHD moment.
Your ADHD moment is fine. You can have a movement break if you want to get up, a brain break.
Brain break.
My next question was, why do many people with ADHD decide to go down the self-employed route?
Well, I always tell people that, at some point in your life, you may start out working with somebody. If you know what the right path is, working for somebody else becomes a lot easier to imagine, because it's a means to an end, right? You need that foundational work to just get the lay of the land and sort of figure out, but knowing that at some point you're going to want to take off and do your own thing, right? That's true of almost everyone with ADHD. It was true of me way early on in my career. I worked for 2 companies for 5 years in my field, and then I just said my next step is to work on my own. That's my, I'm not, I don't want to be your manager. I don't want to be your supervisor. I don't want to, do all the things necessary to become one of those that my employer was suggesting. I said, no, my next thing is to do my own, be my own boss. And because why? We don't like taking orders from people that much, right? We don't like, I mean, you know what I'm talking about. We do
Yeah,
not
I hear
like,
this all the time. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. We are somewhat rebellious group. We have our own ideas. A lot of times we can see the bigger picture where other people can't, and we can see that maybe one direction that our boss, so to speak, wants to take us is probably not going to work out that well, because we can kind of see the writing on the wall. That becomes, those kinds
Yeah.
of things become frustrating. uh, Bottom line is we don't like taking orders all that much. And so at some point, finding a way to sort of allow yourself to become your own boss, so to speak, in the way that's going to work out the best for you. And that means usually getting a lot of support as well. Like
Yeah.
there needs to be a list of the kind of support people you will need to do that. And don't imagine doing that on your own. Just don't, with nobody else to support you. I
Mm.
don't mean working for other people or even bringing on a partner necessarily. I mean having support people. Like I have a virtual assistant, and I have somebody who does my taxes. I have somebody who does my graphic stuff for me. There's just different people that you need to be able to suss out and depend on uh,
Yeah. Uh,
if you're going to
and
work on your own. Yeah,
that,
go ahead.
that's something that I noticed certainly when we were trying to organize this podcast. That there's a lot of people involved, which is
There's a
great.
lot of
Like,
people.
yeah,
Let
which is
them be the
amazing.
experts in that so you can
Yeah,
focus on doing what you enjoy, right?
absolutely. Which works for
Yeah,
you. Certainly, yeah. You can just concentrate on just doing your day-to-day work without having to worry about, sending out a link for Zoom or, it's this appointment, what time, emails, this, that, and the other. And
yeah,
obviously the creative freedom that, people with ADHD enjoy by being self-employed, the
yes,
flexibility, most likely to be less bored if you are self-employed, if anything, because you can, you're not doing your traditional kind of 9 to 5 job. You
yes,
can work reduced hours. You can, so yeah, I can kind of see why. And if you think about all these celebrities that have ADHD and who've been so successful in what they do, they're the ones
yeah,
that are going down those kind of creative avenues, which is kind of worked for them. So but when you look at their career initially, they probably were kind of trying to discover themselves and trying to find out what is their niche, what is their interests, to then obviously subsequently going down the, whatever route that they ended up going down.
and they
Um,
probably drove a lot of people crazy while they were doing it.
yeah,
Too.
yeah, absolutely. And I suppose the question around late diagnosis also plays a part in this, isn't it? If you think about it, some of them, or most of
Yeah,
them anyway, were late diagnosed, similar to you, where
yeah,
they didn't know why they weren't able to hold down a job, or they kind of
yeah,
feel, you know, it didn't feel like they knew exactly what pathways they wanted to go down.
hmm.
So if you're working with an adult, I'm assuming you only work with adults, or do you work with young sort of
I
young people as well?
I work with younger adults, like people in their 20s, a lot of people who've just graduated from college, people who've had 1 or 2 jobs. I think I have a 25-year-old in my next couple of people, all ages. I don't work with teenagers at this point. I have had a couple where their parents were just like, please. They were a little bit more mature, so I was able to kind of work them into the class. I have a master class that I do of 6 people, no more than 6 people. It just needs to be a good fit for the group that I'm working with. Um, but for the most part, anywhere from early 20s to, I mean, I've had a 69-year-old person who wanted to keep working. Or even if you're looking to figure out what to do in retirement, I mean, this process works for that as well. Like these are, in fact, it would work really well because now you can pretty much do what you want, which is what we always want. We always want you to be able to do what you want, but now you really get to, because now you're retired and you don't have all these other external issues that you have to deal with.
Yeah.
But mainly I would say the majority of people I work with are probably in their early 30s to millennial age, the
Right.
millennials. Yeah.
Do you think this is something that should be incorporated in school, maybe the later years in school, about career choices?
Not
What's your
only
thoughts
do
on
I think that, I'm just angry that it's not happening. I remember when my son was in high school, he's 30 now, but I remember when my son was in high school and I went to the high school to offer this process, you know, to their students. And they had a little career center there, and the head of the career center sat there with her arms folded, like, we take care, we can do it, we can take care of our kids. And really what they did was just sat them in front of a computer while they took assessments. That's not the same thing. I don't do assessments. This is a self-reflective process. So yes, this should be mandatory for everyone in school. Mandatory. The school systems do not offer this kind of thing. That's why I'm out there promoting this as much as I possibly can. I have been my whole entire career, but I'm not, I don't work as much with the neurotypical community, but this process is for everyone. I just happen to have it very customized for people with ADHD. And we use a workbook, and I'm creating my own workbook now. I'm working with a publisher, people in publishing, and I have a team of nothing but neurodivergent people to help me with it. So we're all on the same page, and it's going to be amazing when it comes out to help people discover their career path.
Wow, wow. And we look forward to, obviously, when that comes out, we'll keep an eye out for it as well.
October, hopefully. Yeah.
October, wow. I might bring you back onto this podcast. We can talk about it once you've launched
Yes,
it.
I
So
want to come back. A lot of people said when it comes out, please come back. Yes, I plan to go back and do when it comes out. It's just, I finally found the best editor. I've got the perfect graphics person. I'm talking to the right printer. It's going to be spiral bound. So
right.
you can write in it flat instead of having those, I try and think of the things that with ADHD distract us.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to make it very flowy and easy and graphic and all the things that sort of help you move through the process. And I'm going to do an audio version as well. So for people who can have the book in front of them and then listen, that's another way that they can kind of work through it. And I still have the masterclass. Masterclass is far more intensive in the sense of me coaching them while they're going through it. But this would be the next best thing. This would be
Right.
the next best thing.
That leads me to my
Yeah.
next question in terms of your actual coaching sessions. You talked about your master classes there. Do you want to tell us exactly what you offer and how that's structured, and maybe the brief content of what you cover in your session? In your sessions as well.
Yeah. So it's a why do I always start out with 6? It's an 8-week, week to week, 90 minutes a week sessions. And right now I offer one in the evening. The one for the UK is probably the one during the day. I always have at least one UK person in it, or somebody from Europe in the class. And that one would be kind of your evening time. And then I have an evening one for people in Australia and New Zealand and those areas that would be, a little more in during their daytime. But it involves the process that I was talking about, where you identify all the areas that make up your ideal work week to week. It's very structured that way. We use a workbook. You can go to career coaching with Shell.com and there's a little video you can watch under it. It says read more. Click on read more and it will take you to the masterclass. There's a download PDF of all the details, lots of reviews, so lots of good stuff to read. Most people go, yeah, I totally relate to, I try to write it in such a way that people would connect to it. And I get a lot of really positive responses of people who read through the website and go, yeah, that's me. That's me. They see themselves. I just want you to see yourselves and know that you're being supported and that I'm going to be there for you. That's basically what it is.
So you obviously get clients at different stages in their life. You might get someone who's at
Yes.
the beginning of their sort of career life, and like what you said, you're 69-year-old. Do you have any sort of success stories that you might want to share with us? Maybe a client you've worked with, and maybe just talk us through the journey and how just that went through.
Oh, okay. Yeah, many. Read the reviews, you'll see. But one of them I always loved talking about was a young man who was working for a bank as an underwriter. And if you're listening, I won't say your name if you don't want me to, but you know who you are. Working for a bank in a job he basically he described it as crushing job. He was kind of a free spirit. He was, he had kind of wild hair and he had to pull it back and wear a suit. And he wasn't able to really be himself in the position. And he came in very cynical. And during the process, and I say this happens a lot where opportunities will start to show up as you're kind of going through it because you're starting to notice things and notice what's out there a little bit more. There's a little bit of law of attraction in there too, which means that you are sort of identifying what you want. And when you're able to do that, you start to attract those things a little bit. And so somebody presented him with an opportunity to interview with a company, a movie company. He lived in Pasadena and he was very interested in stage design and arts and entertainment and got lost in building stage props and things like that. And he said, I never would have ever gone to that interview if the people in the class encouraged him to do it as like an informational kind of thing instead of just thinking he had to go on an interview. So he called them up, set something up, and went through several rounds as they do. And the position was actually for something doing pretty much what he was doing in the bank, only using his problem solving skills more. And it was in the production department of a movie company.
Wow.
And yeah, so he was worried about the money. He ended up getting the job at 40% more than what he was making, and
Excellent.
negotiated his travel time because he was working part from home and part in, and he was still doing the same kind of work, but now in the completely different environment. And he had access to all the people who were doing the kinds of work that he was interested in. And he's, slowly starting to make his way through all of
Ex-
that. Yeah, so that's a good
yeah.
it's like you don't have to start out doing something completely different. You can do
Mm.
something that you've done before only in a completely different environment and have a complete change of life, have things completely turn around.
Yeah.
So,
So with your sessions, like being a career coach, do you have experience of offering just general like ADHD coaching? I'm assuming that
no, I don't
for
do
some,
ADHD.
oh, you don't do
Nope.
ADHD coaching, right? Okay. Because my point was just to try and because you might find someone who might be struggling with their ADHD symptoms like executive functioning and
Yeah.
mood issues and all of that. Would you
I'm glad
say,
you asked me. So here's what I want to say. When people
yeah,
ask me that, I say and when I can see in their descriptions what they're writing that they may be looking for an executive function coach. I will tell them I am a career coach who works exclusively with people with ADHD, but I am trained as a career coach. I've done nothing but career coaching and counseling for my entire career, and I do not have ADHD coaching training, although there are aspects of it that actually organically happen throughout the process because now you're focusing in on things that are important to you, that you want, that you enjoy, which will naturally help your executive function challenges in some way, at least on the job, when you're doing something, when you're in the right, when you're in the right position, it's not like they vanish. You still have to deal with your ADHD. And that's when a good coach would come in handy at that point. Like, now you're in the right fit, and it's time to bring in an executive person to maybe deal with some of the scheduling, timing, uh, procrastinate, maybe some of the things that come up. That would be the time for an ADHD executive. And I refer a lot of people out to executive
Right.
coaches.
Would you assist someone with a job application, for example?
Um, no, I do not. I don't do the interview skills. Basically,
Right.
through this process, you kind of learn, you kind of build the confidence and understand how you would go about approaching the where you want to work, who you want to work with, and in what capacity. So very often, even filling out a form online is kind of like, you don't need to do it, because you're connecting with people in your field before that. You're building a network of people who are doing the things that you want to be doing. So it's not like you don't have to do that at all. But I like to say, when you're in the right fit, they may come back and say, oh, by the way, we need you to fill out an application just so we have it on file. It's not always the case. Sometimes you have to do it in advance, but um, just know what you want. Knowing what you want makes all the difference in
And
just the process. Yeah.
that's the question right there. Knowing what you want, and for some people with ADHD, they know a lot of what they want. There's too many ideas that they have, but to
Yeah.
narrow it down and focusing on, okay, let's prioritize it. Let's look at that. I think that's where you come in, I suppose, isn't it? So if you ask me,
Yes.
okay, where do I see myself and what are my skills and my, all of that, that's, I'm assuming that's what you'd go through with them. But to
Yes.
be able to then unpick all of that, to then work out, okay, this is the right pathway for you. How does
Mhm.
that transpire? Because that's interesting for me, just hearing you there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's more organic. I'd say it's different for everybody. Um, Part of the process involves doing, you've heard the term informational interviews.
yeah,
Um, but these are done in such a way that you're really it's just the next level of research. So you start out maybe doing some online research, and then you're curious about something. So you speak with somebody who's doing that kind of work. Well, in the process of doing that, you're building your confidence in speaking with people about different things without being sitting there in a job interview, because it absolutely is not a job interview. But you're kind of building your network, and like, who do you know that you think I should be speaking with? You're building your network throughout the whole process, and that builds your confidence, and things come a lot more naturally than feeling like you have to sit there for hours online filling out these things and getting no response. I mean, getting no response, what is the point of all that? You
yeah,
know, that's, you could be out there like going directly to places that you're interested in, and maybe having a short conversation with somebody who works there to get the lay of the land and feel the feeling for the environment, get a sense of what it's like, and that gives you talking points right there. I mean, the thing is, you have to get more involved in what it is that you want to be doing, talking to people in different organizations, associations, in areas that you're interested in. Those people are really open to having these conversations and can point you in the right direction. So it's kind of more the guerrilla approach of um, finding the right fit, meaning that you're more on the ground versus sitting at your computer
yeah.
trying to figure stuff out. Yeah.
Mm. And that can apply to like a neurotypical person as well. Just what you just said. Yeah, even
Absolutely.
if you don't have ADHD, you can.
Yeah.
They can benefit from that guidance as well. Is it more like a guided discovery, really? Like you're trying to navigate and guide them through and
Yeah.
show, yeah, yeah,
Yes, it definitely is. And what, like I mentioned, the cream rising to the top, as you're going
yeah,
through it, there are certain things that start to repeat themselves over and over, and they may be things that you've thought about for a long time. I mean, sometimes people will come in with an idea of like, this is what they're already happy working for a company, but now they have a chance for a lateral move. Well, what should I be doing? I have no idea which one to take, and what should I be looking at? So that would be one possibility of why people want to suss this stuff out and get to the cream rising to the top, the two, maybe one or two areas that they want to focus in on. And, other people, like I said, come in with ideas, but haven't always considered them because they thought, oh, I'm not going to make enough money at this, right? But I'm here to tell you that if you don't do this work, you're never going to make money at what you want, because you've got to know what you want first in order to make any money at all at any of it. And then when you love what you do and you're energized behind it, that's where the money comes in. And you can see yourselves growing with it and figuring out ways to make more money with it. We're
Yeah.
good at that. We're good at
Yeah.
that. So.
I was going to mention about career progression and promotion. Certainly,
Yeah.
that's again something that it's not all about. Okay, you've got that job that you like and you're really doing well in that, but again, it's looking at your goals and setting yourself targets and those. Okay, can I see myself
Yeah.
growing? Progressing further in this field that I've gone into and stuff like that.
Yeah, and you said this field instead of this job. Like a lot of times people will think of promotions as like becoming a manager or something where they're making more. No, if you don't like managing people, that's not a promotion. That's a death sentence for you. That could be the end right there. So you need a promotion needs to be more of a lateral. I think something that may or may not get you more money, but is more in line with who you are and what you want in your work. So it could be even leaving that dang company if it's not the right company, or I mean, so many, when you think of the word promotion, think of yourself being promoted into doing and expanding in something that you love already, like a field that you're really excited about. And now you want to build the branches of that tree. You want to go off and do, like, you're doing podcasting. What is your main work now?
So I'm a clinician. So I do assessments and diagnostic assessments for ADHD. That's my day to day. And I do and I do podcasting.
Yeah, so you've grown a branch. You've grown a branch on your tree that's called podcasting.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's so many different ways that you can sort of grow in your field and sort of go beyond where you are, the scope of where you are. Our brains are like that. We're so creative. We're the movers and shakers, right? We're the ones that make things happen out there. We make things happen. And the world, when you look at all the people that have built the biggest companies and built, they're all like people like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and all these people. Those people have ADHD, or they're not neurotypical, they're neurodiverse in some way. They may be on the autism scale, they may be a little bit of both.
Yeah.
We all have, most of us have some kind of dual diagnosis, more than one thing. So I find a lot of people I'm talking to now on the autism scale are just like, I'm no different than, I probably should go back and get a diagnosis to see if I'm on the scale. I probably am,
Yeah.
So yeah, it does. It's that we are the movers and shakers. We are the ones that are getting stuff done out there. And our brains are what are bringing the cool stuff about.
Yeah.
We are the thought-provoking products and services, and that's who we are. We just need to channel it so that we are getting able to do more and more of it, and we have a path that it's okay if we break off and do it a little bit differently at some point. It doesn't have to be, it's not a straight and narrow path. It's a very nuanced path. It's going to have a little of this and a little of that, and it might have more than one topic, There might be several topics.
Yeah, and yeah, going back to yourself as well, like what you said about the team that
Yeah.
surrounds you, the people around you, you know your limitations. That okay, I'm not good at that, so I'm going to get someone that can help me with that bit. That same
Yes.
applies could be used with someone with ADHD, where yeah,
Yeah.
we know they've got lots of ideas, but sometimes it's putting those ideas into action, and you don't have the right people around you who's capturing all of these ideas and then turning into kind of, putting into, the wheels into motion, if you like. So yeah, so that's more from the employer, from you having ADHD yourself. But then if you look at it from an employer's point of view, them understanding and being mindful that okay, we can actually make use of this person that have that's neurodiverse. We can use their creativity, and because sometimes most employers, I've heard that they can be, some of them anyway, can be quite rigid in terms of how they want things to be done, and not really kind of embracing some of the ideas that someone who's got who's a neurodiverse mind can kind of bring in that creativity. So that can create some conflict in itself, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's why those are like important questions. Do you, when you have a person who has creative ideas, how do you generally work with them? Like, do you like people to have ideas? Is there a platform of some kind within the company where you can offer that, and where you'll be listened to, right? So those are fair questions to ask the employer. You need to interview them as much as they interview you. And by the way, when you do that, they are going to put you at a higher level, because now they're seeing somebody who's actually asking questions, who's not just the run of the mill person who might tick off the boxes, but is just kind of desperate for a job, the job beggar, versus the job developer, the person who's developing the job and the work that they want for themselves, and you're lucky enough to have them in your company, and the right employer is going to recognize that. And the wrong employer is going to say, uh-oh, not so good. And that's fine. That's fine. It's good to say this isn't a good fit. It's good. It's good to be able to say this isn't a good fit. I just had somebody write me last night. Okay, she hasn't even started the class yet. She's starting on tomorrow night, or she's starting Thursday. And she said, we talked about one aspect of the work that we're going to be doing beforehand. And she said, this employer offered me the job, and it was the first time I just said, no, I'm not going to take that job, because I realized it would just get me into the same situation again. And it was because of our conversation that I made that decision. And it's very empowering to say no to something that is going to be not good for you. Even though you may be turning down money, but when it comes to your soul being crushed in any way, shape, or form, how much money is that worth? Is it worth it to have that happen? It's not worth it to have that happen. Not in the long run.
Yeah.
So
I think the example you gave us earlier, when you had to walk away from a job that you were enjoying, and you could clearly see the direction that things were going at that point, and look where you are now. Yeah. Do you have any regrets at all when you look back?
I have regrets about not having a plan B when I started that company, because if I recognize as I do now that was a mission, it was not my life purpose, but it was a mission that I had to complete. Kind of like Mission Impossible, right? You have 10 seconds and this tape is going to blow up or be destroyed to make your decision. Should you choose to accept it? If I had done that ahead of time and said, okay, I'm going to do this and maybe stick with it for the next 2 or 3 years, and then if it doesn't work out, this is going to be my plan B to get out of it. That's what I regret, not doing that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
just to finish off in terms of like what you were telling us about the publication that you have coming out in the next few months, which is quite exciting. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that again, so that just in case our
Yeah.
listeners didn't catch it? What's the title? What it's
Oh
about?
God, you asked me the title. I'm still working on the title.
I still
Well,
want the title. Right.
so the first part is distraction to action. Uh, this is, I wish I could say, because I just changed it. It's basically a workbook for ADHD adults. Discover your career, unlock your career. That's it. Unlock your career for ADHD adults. And it's going to be a step-by-step approach that's graphically oriented, inspired by what color is your parachute. So I always give my inspiration. I always give a nod to Richard Bowles, who was he was the one who started everything for me. And hopefully I spoke with his wife, who he died in 2017. I miss him dearly. He was also somewhat of a mentor to me. I had known him for many, many years. And she and I have talked about the book, and she was the one who wanted me to do it. She said, definitely you should be doing this. So hopefully she will be a little bit of a part of it, but she's an inspiration as well. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. She may or may not be a part of it, but she's certainly aware of it. And I think it's going to be, hopefully she'll be endorsing it. But yeah, it's going to be a step-by-step, very graphically broken down, easy instructions. It's going to probably not be, it's going to be maybe thicker than some workbooks, only because it's going to have lots of picture pages, picture word pages that break things down.
Which is quite helpful for people with ADHD.
I'm hoping to put tabs in it. It just depends
Right.
on the expense. Like it may be, I'm doing the spiral bound, which is already creating a problem with printers, right? So I can't do it on Amazon right away. So I'm probably going to be offering it on my website for a while until I get the audio and the ebook version of it, which will go on Amazon for sure. But that means you kind of have to print the whole damn thing out because you need to be writing in it. Well, you could get
Right.
a notebook, but you should be writing in it, because I want it to be something that you could just, that's it. That's all you need is this book
Yeah.
that you can write in, and you can start. And hopefully, I mean, I have this bigger, this is the first time I'm saying this out loud, but I'm having, I've had this broader vision, which always comes true when I have these broader visions of having, I want it to be global, translated in different languages, and kind of have communities of people working with it. So at some point, I would like it to be offered in schools so that kids can go through this before they, you know, older kids will be able to go through this just fine. It's probably not for real young kids because, you know, it does talk about things. It sort of draws on your past a little bit more, some of the things that you've done in your past, but and things they haven't had experience with yet. However, I do see kind of a global community developing. I have a former client from Kenya who sent me this what do you call it, VM testimonial kind of thing that said, you have to come here and bring this to Africa. And I'm like, oh my God. She said, you need to have all these organizations working with you. I don't know. It's too big for me to think about, but when she said that, it really like connected with my whole thing about the global idea of working with people. So yeah, I think it could be something. I don't think there'll be anything like it out there. I can't imagine there being anything. There isn't anything like it out there. I've already done the research. So fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. I have an amazing graphics person. Now I found my editor. I had to go through what they call vanity. I made a mistake. I don't know anything about publishing. So I went through 2 companies that were completely the wrong fit for me, and almost went crazy. But I took my time now and found the right editor I want a an ADHD editor, an ADHD graphics person who was a former client. And I'm getting an ADHD PR person for helping me with the launch.
Yeah,
So we're a team of like, we all kind of are viewing it from what we all would want for ourselves. That's kind of where.
amazing. Will you be like maybe coming over to the UK or to Europe at some point, maybe to promote your the new book and maybe give some
Ooh,
talks
good
or
point.
maybe there you go. I'm giving you
I
some
don't know.
ideas.
Yeah, you are giving me ideas. I don't know. I haven't traveled in a while since COVID, to be honest with you. Uh, but maybe. I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead, but maybe, yeah.
Yeah, that. There you go. Something to think about. Maybe just bear that in mind. Do you obviously I can see that you are a masterclass facilitator, and do you do kind of public speaking, like events, conferences, seminars, and things?
So far I haven't. I could absolutely do that, but it's not my number one thing because I right now this book thing is taking forever. Like I can only do so much. You know how our brains are, right? I want to
Yeah,
make sure I'm not doing more than what I'm really comfortable doing so that I can make sure I get that done. But getting this book out is going to be like, I'm just kind of beginning that editing process. So that's going to be taking up a lot of time. At some point, yeah, I mean, I could always do those things. Sure. I may do the ADHD conference and have a booth or something like that and maybe do a talk or something if they want me to.
yeah. And just
Yeah.
you mean the one? I'm coming over to the one this year, actually. The one in Baltimore, in Maryland.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not going to be at that one. I'm not going to,
Okay.
because I'm going to be working on my book. I'm going to be the year after that. I think I'm really going to be promoting the book and going to the next one after that.
Excellent.
I'm
Yeah, and
sorry.
we
I
look
wish I
forward to
could
that.
meet up with you. That would be
Of
fun. Oh,
course.
well.
Yeah, absolutely. Whereabouts are you based? I was just going to ask you that actually.
I'm in San Antonio, Texas. Are you going to be in San Antonio?
Funny enough, we had Texas last year. We were in Dallas for the last
Yeah.
conference last year,
Yeah.
and I came over there last year.
Yeah. Yeah. But Dallas is 5 hours from here. So fly
But
into San Antonio and we'll go on the Riverwalk and hang out. How's that?
and we can record this, yeah, in person. Yeah, that's a very good idea. I'll take you up on that offer. That's amazing. Yeah. Last
Yeah.
question I was going to ask you: do you do group coaching at all?
Well, the master class is more or less of a group. It's not
Right.
a class, but the only thing I do for the most part is that right now and individual with the people after they've taken the master class. That's mainly what I'm doing as far as my coaching is concerned. I'm not doing the individual coaching, which is what I did for years and years and years, because I found that I love doing I change. You know how you shift and change? I love doing this way more than individual, with taking people through the same process, but only on
Yeah.
their own.
Yeah.
People having that support of other people going through the same journey is you can't, and it's a small. There's nothing like it.
Right.
You're with other people who are in career, some in career crisis, but they're going through the journey of making that decision for themselves, right? And yet they're supporting each other, they're networking with each other, they're working off campus, I call it, outside of the class together on the exercises, doing body doubling and things like that. There's nothing like that, that you can get from doing individual work on career specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it saves time for you as well, like having a group of clients there,
Yeah,
as
and
you
I
say.
love it.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
working with a group. I think I
Yeah.
like it much better. And I used to do in person, but now, of course, I can work with people everywhere on Zoom, which a lot
Yeah.
of us do. A lot of us work on Zoom.
Right.
But yeah.
So do you want to just tell us your if people want to reach out and contact you, your kind of contact details, your emails, any kind of social media pages that you have?
Okay, so right now, Career Coaching with Shell on Facebook, LinkedIn. If you just look up my name, Shell Mendelson, you can find it. I don't know exactly what the at is. I'm not on Twitter. I got off of Twitter because I just didn't enjoy it. It just wasn't my thing, wasn't my medium or platform. Um, my website is careercoachingwithshell.com. It's also it's several things. But the main one is careercoachingwithshell.com. gmail.com. And that's the best place to find me. And my phone, I can give you my phone. I'm happy to give you my phone if people want to call internationally, is 830-237-2735. You can call and leave a message. If I don't, sometimes I pick up, but just you can call and leave a message. Better to email me at shell.mendelson, MENDELSON @gmail.com. That's probably the best way. Or text me at the phone number. Text me too.
You're the first person who's given out their personal phone number on a podcast.
It's right on the website. It's right on the website.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay, fair enough. Right. I was just gonna say you're gonna be.
It's my business. It's my business phone. So
it's your business account. Yeah, you probably have someone else looking after that side of things for you anyway. So, so Shell, absolute honor and pleasure to have you as a guest. Tell you what we can do. Maybe once your book is out, we can maybe arrange another sort of check-in podcast maybe with you at that time.
Absolutely, I would love it. Yeah, I would love it. Things will be really shifted by then because I'll have a much better feel for what it's going to look and feel like, and be able to speak to it a little bit more about how it can be used successfully.
And once we know the title, obviously we'll stay in touch via email and things for the time being anyway. Once you know the full title, please do share.
Unlock your career path for ADHD adults. I think that's probably it. From distraction to action, unlock your career path for adults with ADHD. I don't know. It's going to be somewhere in that.
Excellent. So listeners, you had it there first. The title from Shell.
It's still being worked on. It's still being workshopped. I'm working on it. It'll always have those kinds of things. They may be in different order, and my editor is going to help me with that. So,
right, amazing. Yeah. So, is this the first podcast you've done in the UK, or have you featured on any other podcasts over here?
No, I did one with Kate Morsaf, and probably a couple of other ones. I don't know. Now you're asking a question. I have to go back and look, but I have done a couple. Yeah.
Okay.
I love working with people from the UK. I work all over the UK. So.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Amazing. And thanks for your team for reaching out to us as well. So now that we know who you are, what you do, and certainly I'm sure our listeners will make use of your services, and we'll put your contact details in the podcast description. And
Thank you.
As I said, I will stay in touch with you, and we'll catch up again in sort of the next few months.
This was so fun. It was so fun.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I made it stress-free for you. Go on.
Keep podcasting. Keep up the podcasting. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And if you can, share our podcast link with all your other colleagues and clients over there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I will. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Shell. All the best.
Okay.
Take care. See you later. Bye.
Bye-bye. Are we off?